Welcome back to the Why Mindset Matters podcast. I'm Eslana Loa. I'm an author, speaker, resilience mindset coach. I'm a nurse, a midwife, and a mother of 4. And if this is somehow the first episode of mine that you've found, I do want to start by providing a trigger warning. I do discuss the loss of my teenage daughter, Riley, to suicide. So today's conversation is probably going to be a brief one, but we'll see how we go. I just wanted to talk about the days when everything just feels too much. I have definitely had quite a challenging time of late, and even the fact that this podcast is coming to you a bit late this week is a reflection of I've been having some days where everything just feels too much, and I think everybody can probably relate to those days when you just feel like your mind is tired or your heart is heavy or your soul is just exhausted, and even the things that you want to do feel impossible. And I feel like I've got so much to get done and then I'm not getting any of it done. And you kind of end up, I don't know, staring at your to-do list but can't bring yourself to move. It's that kind of vibe this week, and it got me reflecting on what that space actually feels like, the one where we're caught between I know what I should do and I just can't do any of it right now. Because the truth is, mindset is everything, but it's not the only thing. It's so valuable, it's so important, but it's not the only thing. And I know I talked about it last episode about how sometimes there's more going on than just being able to bring that resilience and that commitment and dedication to being aware of your mindset and your perceptions and all of the things that we know that we can use so powerfully to impact our life and our quality of life. But then when we do all of those things and it's not yielding the results or the effects that it normally would or that we desire, then we kind of need to take a step back and look at, is there more going on here? And I feel like can be, if we're not careful, this pressure to just always push through or to stay motivated and show up no matter what. And maybe that's my own pressure. Maybe that's something that I mostly create for myself. But I do feel like maybe there is an element of societal pressure because we are supposed to just keep going, and whether it is societal, whether it's our own internalized pressure, sometimes your body's just saying, please stop. And that's what happened to me this week. And maybe it's grief, maybe it's trauma, maybe it's this stress that has been sitting in my system for years because, let's be real, I have had a nervous system that from a young age was just in overdrive and in protection mode and in ready to go to war in order to protect itself. And it's been pretty awful to think that the majority of my life has been spent with situations or traumas or insults or assaults that reaffirmed this need for my nervous system to stay hypervigilant. And so I'm not surprised that my nervous system can only handle so much before it hits shutdown. I'm actually quite surprised at how much it did handle before it kind of got to that point. And that's what this last week has felt like, is just my nervous system going, you know what, I need a break. And in the last few months, in the lead up to reading my book, that is, I had the privilege of getting to know what it felt like to be residing in a body that had a calm nervous system at the wheel. And it's been incredible because that wasn't something that I was familiar with. It wasn't something that I had the privilege or honor of experiencing. And then to start to settle into that peace has been amazing. And obviously reading my book brought its own challenges and things to the surface. And I have had about a month of really, really intense healing taking place that happened to present and feel a lot like destruction. It felt a lot like destruction, and it got me thinking about why they call it growing pains. And I think that when we are expanding and when we have rapid, genuine growth, what that means is that we're expanding at such a fast rate from what we know ourselves to be and pushing. If you think of it like a balloon that's filling up rapidly with water, obviously the boundaries of that container go from relatively small to quite a significantly bigger size quite rapidly. And I feel like that's what's been happening to me. I've had these growing growing pains. I've had this growth happening that feels uncomfortable because of the expansion, but it also feels simultaneously uncomfortable because at the same time you've got a nervous system that's trying to protect you going, what are you doing? Come back here, sit down, stay small. And so part of the growing pains is the resistance or friction that's created by the growth that's happening, whether you're necessarily 100% consenting to it or not, because let's be real, sometimes life kind of forces our hand in that regard, and that's certainly been what's been happening to me, because although, yes, you kind of do have to go with it and consent and make the right choices, there's an element of life, especially in the aftermath of such significant trauma and things like what I'm dealing with, that doesn't really feel like there's many choices, if any. It just feels like you're being forced forward, and the only other alternative would be to leave this life. And that's not an alternative for me, because I'm not going anywhere. I want my dues. I want the good part to my life. I want the second half where I get to be happy and have all of these amazing relationships. I want to be loved the way I love. I want so much from life that I know is mine and kind of owed to me. The first half of my life sucked, and I'm in it for the long haul. So in that regard, that's what I mean by it doesn't really feel like I had a choice. I have to grow. I have to lean into this and kind of go with it and do my best to navigate these uncharted waters and territory that feels extremely uncomfortable to find yourself in. And for those reasons, the expansion and the resistance. But I have been leaning into it. I've been very vocal about the challenges associated with that growth and aware of the parts that I can contribute to or control, and trying to do my best to, I guess, lessen the discomfort associated with the healing and the growth, because we don't really want to be in discomfort. Our ego doesn't like that much at all. And trying to work out what discomfort is healthy growing pains, and is there discomfort here that needs addressing that maybe isn't associated with growth and healing and so forth. So it's been a bit of a bumpy month, and yeah, I'm still here, and I've got all the right supports in my corner. And the therapist that I'm seeing asked me today, looking back, now knowing that that's what all of this turmoil was, that it was healing, because I had said to her, what is going on? Why can I not just pick myself up out of this mud? Why can't I just snap out of it and just be okay? Like I've done this so many times after such horrific things in my life. And she said to me, but that was your nervous system just trying to survive. Okay, I'll pull you out of the mud. Let's keep moving. Let's keep moving. This is us actually healing and integrating, and almost like the blindfold that may have protected me or served as a perceived protection by my nervous system is now gone. And so I have to face everything. And so it's been horrifically uncomfortable in that regard, because it almost feels as though Riley has just died and it's just happened. And I was in an element of disbelief that she even did it. I feel like I have been right back at the beginning in so many regards, because for the first time I've been properly and non-consensually facing all of it in its fullness and rawness and trueness, I guess. But it's been a lot. It's been intense. And now that I'm on the up and can look back from the mountaintop and go, okay, I can see what was happening, and that this was all part of the healing and integration and the journey. And I'm so excited for my future. But hindsight is a wonderful thing. And looking back, what do I feel I did well, was what she asked me. And I said the fact that I was vocal, the fact that I communicated effectively and across many different means to all of the people that mattered, because by being quite vocal and being willing to bring conversations around the darkness into the light, it honestly saved my life. Because had I suffered in silence, had I self-isolated, I would have unraveled. I would have honestly become another statistic, because I don't know how we are supposed to survive that kind of darkness and suicidal ideation alone. there is no real capacity that I see for somebody who suffers that way to do that. And so it is by finding our voice, by being willing to be so vulnerable and seeing the strength, even if it doesn't feel like strength at the time, in that vulnerability and that willingness to be vocal and say, I'm not okay, or I'm really struggling, or I actually am sitting in the darkness and feel suicidal right now, or whatever it is. Because whether it was on my story online, whether it was on the podcast, whether it was to friends, to family, whoever, by being consistently vocal about how I was sitting in my not okayness and how that actually felt, and the risk that I felt came with it, meant that people were better positioned to support me. And that support comes in many different forms, but such valuable, even if it's underrated by the person who's delivering it. It's so fucking powerful in saving lives. And it could just be that people are more aware that you're struggling, and when you ask them to a social interaction, they're more likely to say yes because they know the power of presence. And where they'd not known, easily gone, oh no, not tonight, and not really considered the not that people have to show up to things they don't want to go to, but when we expose our suffering and when we really acknowledge our position and our vulnerability, it allows people the privilege and honor of showing up for us, because you would be surprised at how many people want to support you. They just don't know how to. We want to love and support each other, and the majority of us actually really do want that. And so I was proud of the capacity I had to own my shit and be vocal about it. And then she asked me what would I do differently moving forward, and I said, honestly, probably everything, because I feel like I am in the midst of this expansion and growth that means that I have outgrown the previous version of who I was. And in that growth that is still occurring, I'm expanding beyond what I even perceived to be the capacity I had for how I show up in life and how I want to take up space and how I want my life to look and feel. So who am I to say what this next version of me is going to look or feel like, or how she will act? Obviously, there's parts of me that is my authentic self and that won't change, but I honestly don't know. I'm so in the middle of, or I guess the eye of the storm in some regards, that I just have no idea what is to come. And for the first time in a little while, I'm grateful to be back in a place of excited anticipation about that, rather than fearful about the future or second guessing my capacity to survive, when I'm here to do so much more than survive. My intention is to thrive wholeheartedly, and I don't believe, as much as I thought that I knew what that looked and felt like, I don't believe I've touched the surface on that. And I'm excited for the fact that before all of this turmoil, I was really in flow, in alignment. I was manifesting. I felt completely at peace about what I want in my future and a future relationship and all of these things that I felt just completely at peace about and was coming for my life. And now I look back and think, well, I kind of was just touching just the tip of the iceberg in that regard. So I'm excited to be on the up. I honestly think that the last 4 weeks have been the most difficult of my life. And I questioned that as I heard myself say it to the therapist are you sure? Because it's been a rough ride from a young age. Are you sure you want to say that about this last period? Is it just the close proximity of the experience that makes it feel more intense maybe than it was, and that's why you think it's worse than what's come before that? But I don't. I think that a lot of what I have lived through or survived prior was done so in a degree of shock or denial or buffering, if you like. And the reality is the last 4 weeks have been the most raw and truest and most confrontational of my life. Because for the first time, I do have a healthy nervous system, and I don't have the blinkers on or the privilege of a blindfold. And I've had to look the ugliness of life and trauma and abuse and neglect right in its eye and be face to face with the bullshit of all of it and decide whether I'm going to survive, really, because there was no thriving in the last 4 weeks, but whether I'm going to survive this confrontation, because I don't think it's something many people do. That kind of confrontation is something, it's definitely not something we welcome. It's not something I would I would suggest welcoming, that's for sure. It is a lot. And I think it's something that I can now understand with first-hand empathy is the destruction of a lot of people, and I fully understand why they don't survive it. But like so much of my nursing and midwifery career, when I would have an experience in my life like pregnancy loss or complications in pregnancy that then ended up being, oh no, you're all fine, this is all clear, or whatever it is, and I'd look back and go, why the fuck did I have to go through all of this? That, and then I'd sit with it and go, okay, well, I don't know right now. Maybe it's to make me a better midwife. Maybe it's to be able to support people through their pregnancy or loss or their complications, or maybe it's I've got daughters. Maybe it's my daughters that I will end up supporting, because I know that there's nothing more valuable than first-hand empathy when you are positioned to be able to support somebody. And a good example of this is when I had my first child when I was only 20, my son. And I remember being in labor and the midwife going, come on, you're doing a great job. And I said, have you done it? And she was like, what? I said, have you pushed a baby out of your vagina? And she just kind of looked at me and I said, because I don't want you telling me that I can fucking do it if you haven't done it. And I honestly, it was so important to me, because don't you dare stand there and tell me that I can do this thing, that I'm second guessing the capacity that I have to survive this, if you haven't done it. And when we step back and look at that as an example, there is definitely the ability for people to support others through things that they haven't necessarily been through themselves. But I think that there is no greater value in life when you are in the trenches of whatever it is with someone, trying to keep their head above water or support them or convince them of the capacity they have to survive, than first-hand empathy, than the ability to say, I've been here. I've been in your shoes in this spot. I have walked this walk, and now I'm talking the talk because I know about the capacity that you have to do better than just survive, to actually thrive in the aftermath of whatever this is. And so while I'm not grateful for the experience of that darkness I've had and everything I've had to face in the last few weeks, what I am grateful for is the capacity I have to choose my perception of it, and to be able to view it in a way that facilitates me understanding that although I might not see how right now, I can trust that in the future, this will serve me. It will serve me in serving others and helping, hopefully, save lives. Because the things that I'm talking about, the things that I did, the supports that I have, and the capacity to see vulnerability as a strength, and in doing so find my voice, is what has saved my life this last month. And it after reflecting on, is this really the worst month of your life, or is it just the proximity and the intensity of it? My answer is yes, 100%. It is the worst month of my life. And as a 43-year-old who has survived a horrific amount of trauma and abuses and grief and loss in my life, that's saying something. And so now you have a bit of understanding why this podcast episode is a little bit late to air. It's been a fucking journey for me. And I'm glad that I did the work in the last season to overcome the imposter syndrome and the negative self-talk and all of the turmoil that was that part of my journey, because when I'm struggling like this and I haven't had the capacity to show up for myself because of the emotional overwhelm and the exhaustion that has created, I have those little glimmers of, or little whispers of, oh, you've cooked it. See, you've missed an episode. You might as well pack it all in. But I have now the strength to put my shoulders back and go, it's my podcast. It will go to air when I am good and ready for it to go to air. And if this week what my body and my soul and my brain and my shattered fucking heart that I have managed to put back together so beautifully needs a little bit of rest, I'm the rest. I'm the rest. And so that's what I've done. It's interesting, when I started with this therapist, I had said to her, my motto is say yes to life. And she said, it's also okay to say no to life. And I was like, she doesn't understand. I'm just saying yes to everything because that's giving me momentum and I'm showing up for myself. And it's actually such a gift to be able to find the capacity to say no. And I'm not sabotaging anything. I'm not blowing up my life like my negative self-talk from season 1 or imposter syndrome might have convinced me that I was. I'm not at all. I'm just listening to my body and understanding that we can't think our way out of emotional exhaustion. No affirmational mindset hack is going to override my body begging for rest. And so if you're there right now where I have been, then I want you to hear me. And the message is that it's okay to pause. It is 100% okay to pause. And a gift that we should be giving ourselves more often if we really started to listen to our body and our soul. So the lesson in this last week for me has been, instead of asking what's wrong with me, because I was like, what is wrong with me? Why can't I get my mojo back? Where is my motivation? Why do I feel like I have too many things to do, so I'm doing nothing? Instead, I need to try asking, what do I need right now? Because sometimes the answer is rest, and sometimes it's movement, and sometimes it's sunshine, and sometimes it's tears, and sometimes it's company, and sometimes it is a bit of self-isolation, but treading very carefully with that I'm not toxically self-isolating, that I'm not avoiding the very things that I do need, or the connection that serves to be so valuable in my life. And the reality is all of it's valid. And I think that this last week has shown me that in a quite a beautiful way, because before I just kind of, without intending to, demonized self-isolation as if to, I know the risk it brings if we slip too deeply into that and cut all of the other things off as a result. But I now see the beauty of it as well, and that every little piece of the puzzle plays such a valuable role in making up the bigger picture of this beautiful life that we have the privilege of living. And the thing is, resilience isn't about constant motion. It's about intention. It's about living with intention. And when you're in that space of emotional overwhelm, I would just suggest that you start small, like really small. Drink some water. Step outside, feel the air, the sun. If you're on the Gold Coast right now, I don't know if there is a better time of year as far as weather. It is so beautiful. Just go out and be in the sun and feel it on your skin. It's so powerful to bring an element of presence to whatever it is that we're doing. And it's interesting because I was thinking, you could write down one thing that you're grateful for, or even as simple as I woke up today. But if I look back on my week, I'm not writing anything. I could not be fucked. Nothing feels more overwhelming than the simple tasks or actions that I felt were such a valuable and integral part of my everyday life before. And so the kind of overwhelm that I'm talking about can feel like that, like everything is just too much. And so just take it easy would be what I would suggest. And when your energy slowly begins to return, then meet it there where it is. And you don't need to, this is my lesson to myself, leap into action. I just need to lean forward. And it's been interesting because as I'm doing all of these things, processing all of these and dealing with, and then getting these supplements back into my body to help my adrenal fatigue, my body is so tired. And the normal old me, who was, let's be real, revving the fuck out of my engine, being my nervous system, would have just kept going, pushed through, like kept just powering on. And so much of my life has been spent with people around me going, how do you get it all done? I'm like, how do I not? I've got to. Like, I've got a million tabs open and I've got to deal with every single one of them. And what's happened to me is I've found myself in a space where I'm like, I've got a million tabs open and I don't want to look at any of them. And by actually choosing rest and resisting it's not like I'm resisting the urge to keep pushing forward. It's like I cannot find the urge to keep pushing forward. I'm so fucking exhausted, and just allowing that to be okay and listening to my body. And the smallest step done with intention has so much more power than 100 things done out of pressure. And that's what I'm realizing this week. and I'm listening to my body. And normally I would not be able to sleep at midnight. I might get to sleep by 1 o'clock with a tablet to help me sleep. And lately I've been like, oh, I could nod off and it's 9:30. And so last night I closed my mat down and put myself off to bed, didn't need a tablet, just really listening to my body. And I think that a lot of this kind of exhaustion and so forth is the reshuffling of my body, realigning itself and dealing with all of this stuff, but without I look at it now like my nervous system being revved the way it was and in constant fight or flight was kind of like just double dosing your body constantly with caffeine and making it keep going, or taking, like when you take pre-workout just to go to the gym and you really don't feel like you've got the energy. It's a false energy. And so now that I am leaning into this healing and trusting the process, and I'm not double dosing my body with adrenaline, I'm seeing the true degree of energy I actually have when I'm not drugging my body with fight or flight. And instead of being overwhelmed by, why can't I do this? Why can't I just get all these things done? I'm like, no, this is the part I can get done. This is what I'm gifting myself today. And the rest that then comes is what is needed from my body. And I'm grateful to have a really good therapist in my corner that helps me see that sometimes you say no to life and all is still well in your world. And so I've chosen my battles this week, because I think it's easy to beat ourselves up when we're not performing or producing or showing up the way we think we should. And that has been a big thing for me in the past and just as a person. But I think that the real growth often happens in those quiet moments, in the space between breakdown and breakthrough. And that's where I feel like I am at the moment, because I feel like the 3 weeks of this last 4 weeks has been a bit of a breakdown, and I don't think that's a bad thing. It felt terrible, but it felt like a breaking down of all that I knew myself to be, because a lot of who I knew myself to be was built up by a nervous system in fight or flight that doesn't serve me anymore. And so it was almost like an armored up, ready for war type of version that I don't want to be. So I can't really complain about the feeling of breakdown, because I needed to break down everything that was to be able to have the breakthrough that allows you to then blossom or into whatever it is that you're supposed to or destined to be. And I said before I went to Bali last, I feel like the way that I imagine the caterpillar feels right before the cocoon breaks and it's about to become a butterfly, but it doesn't know that it's about to become a butterfly. So to it feels like destruction. And so I had the inner wisdom to go, even though this feels like destruction, I'm pretty sure it is that place between breakdown and breakthrough. And I was right. So yeah, resting and resetting and recalibrating our nervous system is actually doing the work. And it's interesting because everything prior to now told me I needed to keep moving and keep doing and producing and performing and showing up and looking after and nurturing and all of that stuff. And at the moment, I'm realizing that's right now resting. I'm resetting my nervous system, and sometimes giving yourself grace is the most resilient thing that you can do. And I'm grateful for the lesson of that. I'm grateful for the capacity that I have to learn these lessons and find the little gem in amongst all of the shit and mud. So yes, if today you don't feel like doing anything, that's okay. Breathe and be gentle and trust that this moment is a part of your process, because even in the stillness, you're becoming. And even when it feels like nothing's working out, it's always working out. And I still 100% trust that. So if this episode resonated with you, then please share it with someone who might need the reminder that they're not alone in this. And if you'd like to connect more deeply, then come join me inside our Why Mindset Matters community on School. It's a safe space where we talk about healing and resilience and learning to live and grieve simultaneously, filled with amazing people. But until next time, be gentle with yourself and remember, the pause is powerful. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of Why Mindset Matters. I'm Eslana Loa. You can follow me on Instagram at Eslana Loa or at Resilience Mindset Coach. I very much look forward to sharing everything that the future episodes have to offer. See you soon.